Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Deonn and the Book Hunt. Today I'm doing the intro to this video in a bit of a vlog style because I actually did record the intro to this video, but it turned out kind of blurry and it's just now that I'm noticing when I'm going to sit down and edit. So I'm just going to introduce this video shortly to you, where I'm going to tell you that we're going to focus on a video that I actually did at the beginning of the year where I discussed my most anticipated releases of 2022, and I'm just today going to shortly revisit those books and see how many I read and what I thought about them, whether they kind of held up to the prediction of me really liking the books because I really anticipated their release. And then we're also going to revisit the books that I didn't pick up and why that is, and whether I plan to pick them up in the future. So yeah, without further ado, let me show you the books that I already discussed in a previous video. I'm going to link it somewhere in the cards above so you can visit that video as well, and then just hear out my thoughts. The first book that I have on the list is The Summer Proposal by Keeland. This book I picked up when it released because I was very much in the mood for a sports romance, and this one did not disappoint. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really loved it, and I think I've mentioned it quite a few times this year. I think in my sports recommendation video, as well as a couple of wrap-ups that I did. So I definitely really like this book. We're following our heroine, who at the start of the book is waiting for her blind date in this pub in New York, and she encounters this guy who walks into the pub and goes straight to her, starts to have a conversation with her, kind of a very weird conversation. She assumes that it's her blind date, but it actually isn't. It's just the guy who was walking past, saw her sitting, was immediately intrigued by her, and decided to kind of entice her to follow him instead of waiting for her blind date. And that's how their story starts. It's a very interesting and very kind of fun meet cute that they have. And the guy is a famous hockey player. She herself has this business with flowers. And the interesting part within the story is that they have an agreement for a summer fling because she's actually in an open relationship. So it's not exactly certain whether they're going to end up with each other by the end of the book. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and it definitely is one of the better sports romances that I've read this year, and I definitely recommend it. Next up, we have a book by Lynn Solomon, an author that I've read other books by before, and I've really been interested in other releases that she has, so I really wanted to pick this one up. I was very intrigued by it because it really sounded like it had a very cute and interesting premise. The book is called Weather Girl, and it involves a TV weather girl and a sports reporter that work in the same media outlet, and their bosses were married but are now divorced, so the whole atmosphere within their media outlet is just horrible because they're horrible to each other. So the two of them, the weather girl and the sports reporter, kind of make up this team to try to get them back together, so the situation within the floor, their working floor, improves. But in the meantime, they kind of spend a lot of time together, so they catch feelings for each other. I really liked this book. It wasn't what I expected because it wasn't like the cute rom-com-y type of book that I thought it was going to be. Especially when I saw the illustrated cover, I was like, oh, this looks really, really cute. But within this book, there is a very heavy topic that I did not expect was going to get covered. It deals with depression a lot, with very heavy depression. And I really appreciated how it was depicted within the book. So that is something that I definitely did not expect and definitely did appreciate. I gave this book 4 stars, and I definitely recommend it, but I do warn you that you need to check for the trigger warnings to see whether you're prepared for it. Next up, we have one of the 2 releases that Colleen Hoover had this year, which is Reminders of Him. It came out in January, and I picked it up quite a bit early on when it released, and I really did like it. I think it's not my favorite Colleen Hoover book, but it definitely is one that is worth picking up. The book centers on a woman who had to go to prison, and she gave birth in prison, but she had to give up her baby, where the baby was staying with its grandparents, so the father's parents. And when she got out of prison, which was about 4 or 5 years later, she wanted to find her daughter and kind of come back into her life and have a relationship with her daughter. And the only person who can help her is the father's best friend. It's a bit of an interesting read because I don't think that many people expected that Colleen Hoover would not have her typical twist within the story. This story was really very much focused on the plot of the heroine, of how she came to be where she is and how she needs to redeem herself to try to get what she wants. So the romance is maybe it's not on the back burner, but it's very much leveled. It's not really too focused on the romance story, but it's more focused on, I think, her past and how she wants to continue on with building a relationship with her daughter. So I did like this book. I definitely would recommend it, but it definitely is not my favorite Colleen book. Next up, we have a third book within a series by K.A. Tucker. The book is called Running Wild, and I was very much anticipating this book because I've been loving the Wild series overall, and I was really eager to get back within that world. But this story does not follow the original couple from the first two books. It's focusing on Marie, who was in love with the hero of the first two books, but she didn't get the man because he moved on with someone else. So we're following her love story. She's what I appreciated about this book is that she's in her late 30s. So she's not the typical heroine who is still kind of in her 20s and has all the time in the world. She kind of really feels like she has missed the boat. She feels like she has had opportunities but did not make use of them, and now she kind of feels like it's not going to happen for her. And I definitely have people in my life who feel that and struggle with that, and I can definitely very much relate to that. And her love story is with a guy who is a musher. So they live in Alaska, and the main sport there is mushing, where you have, you know, the sleighs and the huskies who pull the sleigh. And I had never read a book that centers on this topic before. It really got me intrigued. I loved that the book or the plot had hate to love within it. Like, they really got off on the wrong foot at the start of the book, and then had to work their way through their differences from the start. I also love that we see Marie struggle financially with her business, so it wasn't really only focused on the romance, but also on her real life problems. So yeah, I really did like this book. It wasn't my favorite out of the series, but I definitely did appreciate a lot of the things that were done within the book, especially the mushing part. I really enjoyed learning about that. So I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely do recommend it. Next up, I'm going to discuss 2 books that I didn't read yet, but I'm definitely going to pick up, I hope, next year. The first one is called How High We Go in Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This book is a sci-fi book that focuses on how humanity is picking itself up after a climate plague. I'm really interested in that one, but I'm a mood reader, so the mood hasn't struck yet for me to pick it up, but I definitely want to read it. And then the second book is one that I definitely will be reading. It's just that I knew that it would come out on audio in Storytel at some point at the start of this year, so I've been putting it off to read it on audio. It's False Boys by Penelope Douglas. I love Penelope Douglas, so I definitely want to read anything that she releases. So yeah, False Boys is going to be on my TBR in January or February, whenever it releases on Storytel. The next book I'm not going to talk about in depth because it's the 4th book within a series, and I have a dedicated reading vlog to it, which I'm going to post above in the cards. It's The War of Two Queens by Jennifer Armentrout. It's part of the Blood and Ash series, and I've loved the Blood and Ash series so far. I did love that book as well, and I'm continuing on with the series whenever the next one releases. So yeah, you can check out my thoughts in the other video. Next up, we have one of the more disappointing reads for me this year, unfortunately. I love Dial A for Aunties by Jessica Sutanto. Last year it was one of my top reads, so I was very much excited for the sequel, which is called For Aunties and a Wedding, which came out in March, I believe, and I picked it up quite early on when it released, and unfortunately I did not like it because it felt very repetitive to the plot that we read in the first book. So yeah, unfortunately that one did not hold up to my 5-star prediction that I had for it, and I'm sorry. Next up, we have a book that I have genuinely forgotten about. Now that I'm seeing it, I get like a bell in the back of my head saying, why did you not pick up this book? The book is called Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. And this book really, when I saw the cover, it reminded me of Caraval by Stephanie Garber. And it focuses on, it's like a young adult fantasy again that focuses on like an enchanted hotel. I really want to read this book. I have just really genuinely forgotten that I wanted to read this book. Now that I'm seeing it, I'm going to look it up again to read it. But yeah, I didn't pick it up. And then we have another one that I had honestly forgotten about. Like, I need to keep up with these lists that I'm making, because I kind of look at them at the end of the year and I'm like, why did I not read this? We have How to Fake It in Hollywood by Ava Wilder, which is a fake dating Hollywood romance. When I read the synopsis for it, I was immediately intrigued, and I'm still intrigued, but for some reason I have just forgotten about it. The next story is by Lynn Solomon again. It's See You Yesterday, and I was intrigued by it because I did not know that it involved a time loop, like a Groundhog Day situation. If I had known, I wouldn't have picked this book up because I don't like this type of progression within a plot. But I did read it. I gave it 3 stars, and I think that it's more a me thing than the book's fault. It's a new adult story of a woman who just got out of high school and is starting college, and she's reliving the first day of college over and over again, together with a guy who is also reliving the same day. So yeah, it just wasn't a me type of book. It wasn't the book's fault. I gave it 3 stars. You can look up to see whether it's going to be for you, but it definitely did not work for me. And then we have one of the more anticipated releases of 2022. Everyone was waiting for this book to come out. It's Emily Henry's Booklovers. And I think when I read it, I was more enthusiastic about the fact that we're getting a new book by Emily Henry. I read it. I did like it at the time. I think I gave it 4 stars when I finished it. But already then I felt like a lot of things were missing for me, like the feeling of being really immersed and engaged with the characters. I did not connect very well with the heroine, and I did like the hero, but just their connection did not work for me. And now that I'm reflecting back on whether I like this book, I do have to say that it was probably one of the disappointing reads that I had this year, because I've read so many other books that were just so much better fleshed out, especially when I think about the fact that I read a couple of books this year that focus on a bookish theme like this one does. For example, The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Sigmund Broca. I don't remember their names very well, but this book I think was done much better than Booklovers. So yeah, I do have to say that because it was maybe so anticipated and everyone thought it was going to be like the best of the best, it kind of ended up being a disappointment. Next up, I mentioned that I'm really interested in picking up The Close-Up by Kennedy Ryan, which is a novella as part of the Hollywood Renaissance series that Kennedy Ryan has. And the interesting part within this novella is that we have characters from the Hoop series as well as the Hollywood Renaissance series making kind of a cameo in the novella. So I definitely want to pick this one up. I just haven't had the time or haven't been in the mood to pick it up yet, but I definitely will read it. Next up, we have Bloodmarked, which is the sequel to Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. I did pick up this book just recently and I really loved it. I don't want to tell you too much about that story because it's a sequel, but I've loved both Legend Born and Bloodmarked. Both of them were 5-star reads for me. It's such an amazing YA novel that focuses on the Arthurian tale, and I'm going to link in the cards above a video where I'm talking about Bloodmarked because I just recently talked about it, so you can check it out. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next release within this series, which will probably not be next year, but a year after. Still, regardless, I'm going to pick it up because I've been loving this series. Next up, we have a book that I did not pick up yet. Again, it's a very particular type of book, so I really need to be in the mood for it. The book is called The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean, and it has a very interesting plot. I don't know what the book is characterized as, maybe science fiction again, or maybe fantasy, I'm not sure. But we have like a line of people who have books as their food. And that just seems like a very interesting premise. And I definitely want to pick that one up. And another book that I didn't pick up yet because it actually did not release this year is by Penelope Douglas again. She was supposed to release a book called Motel, but it didn't release this year. So we're looking forward to seeing whether it will release next year. Now we need to talk about Ali Hazelwood because she did release 3 novellas and also a full-length novel this year. I did pick up 2 of the novellas and I liked them. They weren't favorites of mine. I gave the first one 4 stars, the second one 3 stars. The first one is called Stuck With You, and the second one is actually called Stuck With You. The first one is called Under One Roof, and yeah, they were fun. I'm not gonna lie, they were fun, but I think that because they were novellas, I couldn't get engaged too much with the main characters, which left me feeling like I was hanging a bit in the end. I wanted to know more. That's why I didn't give them 5 stars. But then if we talk about the full-length novel, which is Love on the Brain, that one is one of my favorite reads of the year. I definitely enjoyed it to the max. It's a 4.5 star. Actually, I'm going to say it. It's a 5-star read for me. And we're following a STEM scientist who has kind of a rivals or enemies to lovers situation going on with a guy that she needs to work with after actually knowing him from grad school. And the guy, he's such a cinnamon roll hero and he's been pining for her for quite some time. And there is also kind of a you got mail aspect to the story, which I also absolutely loved, and it was really, really one of my favorites. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end this list with a disappointment. One of my most anticipated releases of 2022 was The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. I've mentioned in previous videos before that I've started this book and I've not finished it. I'm still at the 60% mark. I'm still kind of debating with myself whether I need to continue on, because the reason that I put it down was that it felt so confusing for me. I could not understand what is going on. I felt dumb at some points within the plot because there were just so many scientific things going on and so many discussions, internal monologues about things that I did not understand, that it kind of got me feeling dejected from the characters. And there's many characters that we follow, so at the moment I don't feel like I want to know anything about any of them. And that really sucks, because the first book was me loving every single one of them, and this one just did not do the same for me. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to pick it up again, but at the moment it's on my DNF shelf. And yeah, it was definitely a disappointment for me, and I need to look at reviews for this book to see whether I'm the only one. But at the moment, really, my feeling is not good. Not good when it comes to this book. This wraps up my most anticipated releases of 2022 and how they've come to fare when it comes to me reading or not reading them. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm definitely going to release my most anticipated reads for 2023 video sometime soon. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned and how you like them. And I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Have a happy, wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.